Ahead and take us live. All right, so we are live. Sorry about that. You know what? I can't explain it. I go live, everything's working. We get right into the first story, and my internet goes to zero. And then it stays that just long enough, by the way, just long enough for the YouTube to say, oh, looks like you stopped the stream, so we gotta make a new one now. Meanwhile, Rumble's still plugging on. So maybe you should subscribe to my Rumble because it seems more stable and sane than YouTube does. So sorry about that. I do my very best. I take what I do very seriously, maybe too seriously. I do not like when things like this happen. It's very upsetting. So, but anyway, we're good. So let's perhaps. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Yeah. I gotta plug your audio in again. So give me a second here. Yeah, you're good. We're good. We're good. All right. It's I know. Okay. Yeah, we're back. All right.
All
So
right.
anyway, so what was the thing about Outer Worlds again?
So it was covertly woke. Like you're like this non-threatening kind of friend to everyone kind of character, and all
Mm,
your fellow shipmates were all varying degrees of kind of woke adjacent. But it was like COVID hell world time, so it wasn't like beating you over the head with it, but it was kind of like it was the crack in the dam right before the floodgates burst wide open and really kind of drenched everything in nonstop wokeness and DEI insanity and everything like that. But mechanically, it was sound. It played, fairly close to the things that worked in New Vegas, but
mm,
it definitely was a sign of things to come for what this
yeah.
is.
Yeah. So that
So
that was the thing I wanted to mention is that the main takeaway from this story is that even though it's called Obsidian Entertainment and this sounds like the same team that gave us Fallout New Vegas, it looks like it is only Obsidian in name only. Okay.
yes.
And that the issues with, I don't know about Outer Worlds, but maybe you can see like a thread or an evolutionary movement from when they were doing like stuff like Fallout New Vegas and onto Avowed, which is this new release. So the main problems that people like, basically the reason why the game turned out to be mid is that like where it works well, it works fine. Like, combat is finally executed, and the world is vibrant, and this is what people who have positive things to say are saying.
Hmm.
That there's environmental storytelling that's well done, exploration elements, and of course the customization for characters and player choice. But that's kind of where the good stuff ends. And then there's the negative aspects of the game. I think the main one is that it plays it too safe. So it's basically well, essentially, that it doesn't have the bold innovation that makes it like more interesting than any other fantasy RPG. It is not like the Sky. People are still going to play Skyrim. I believe that there was somebody released some data. As the guys over at the Jamcast, the It's Space guys, that showed, and we'll maybe look at this later on in the show, but it compared how many people are playing Avowed versus how many people are playing Baldur's Gate 3, even though Baldur's Gate 3 is like what? It's been out like for at least a year, maybe more, 2 years?
I'd say
about a year. A year and a
like
half?
2 or 3, I think.
Baldur's Gate 3? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right. And more people are still playing Baldur's Gate 3. So that, you know, that should give you like a sense of like the hype is just not there. But it also, and this was another issue that Dragon Age the Veilguard had too. It's basically trying to be a game for everybody. And this is a problem. This is like a problem in the philosophy of game design for AAA studios at its core, is that they're trying to make games for everybody. And if you make games for everybody, you make games for nobody. And that's that it makes it like so safe that it's basically like, you know, a pool noodle of a game, even if it is competent, which it isn't, because they did have DEI hiring and they were prioritizing this kind of, you know, approach to, you know, staffing your, I believe that was, isn't this the same guy behind this? Can't remember his name, but he was the guy that was talking about how he doesn't want to hire any crusty white dudes and he wants to
well, the game director on this one was a woman. She was talking about how you need to expect jankiness because this was
I remember that too.
A new team of people, and that you know, like they shouldn't be expected to put their best. It's like, why did you hire these people then? You know,
it was. I hear it's a janky, buggy mess as well.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 released in August of 2023, so like a year and some change. Yeah. And Snafu Certified Stud Muffin says Baldur's Gate is just a skinned Divinity game, but bad. Yeah, I have Divinity Original Sin 2. I don't know if that, I haven't played it yet, but I heard that like if you like Baldur's Gate, you should play those, and that's probably right. I think that Baldur's Gate mostly gets by on its. I mean, it's a solid game in terms of the mechanics and everything, but I think most of what its success has a lot to do with the branding, because it's D&D. So like they're just using the D&D brand. Although the D&D brand is losing its value over time. I'm not going to get into Mexican orcs right now, but all I will tell you is I love D&D, but it's dead to me. Like it's completely dead to me. So and I think that the sickness in the tabletop gaming space is easily worse than the sickness in the gaming space, like the video gaming space. So so like I believe it was the art director that was saying that, you know, he wants to hire new people and he wants them to be diverse. And essentially by definition, if you are engaging in a kind of affirmative action style hiring practice, you're going to have a bad product because you're not hiring based on merit. And that's really the only thing that matters. If it so happens to be that the most qualified people fall into a, you know, box that fits your whatever system, that's fine. They're still there because they're supposed to be. But, you know, I think that it was the art director whose name I can't remember. I meant to look it up. But he was the one that was essentially saying that and the art direction for this game is terrible. Like they has the character customization. Who the hell wants to make like you know, a gay cordyceps character? Like I would rather kill them in The Last of Us. I don't want to make one. But for some reason, Avowed is like pushing this as a central part of the narrative. Like there's very few things that are as boring as fungus. You know, you really have to work it up. But so yeah, Buggy Mess played it really safe, tried to be for everybody, which meant it ended up for nobody. It was there was probably an overbloated budget because they intended it to be like a multiplayer game, and then they like backed off of that and decided to just make it an RPG. And I think that some of the holdovers from the multiplayer aspect are still there, so it makes it very strange.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Matt Hansen, the dude
Matt
with
Hansen,
the kerchief man. Yes, he looks like a more kind of pot-bellied, gayer Jamie from Mythbusters. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what he's.
Gabriel says the flood will remember that. You say the flood from Halo. I think you can do mushrooms well. There are mushroom people in Dark Souls. They're great. I like the enemies on The Last of Us, but I think it's very difficult if you don't have like talent. So,
Right,
which
right.
these people don't, and I'm not interested in that. Like, whatever. But anyway, um, what was I going to say? Yeah. So Matt Hansen, that was the guy I was trying to think of. Thank you. I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
So this means that the game is, like I said, mid, and it was. I think that like this is how you know you're dealing with a dud. By the way, you know you're dealing with a dud when they make it available either with a video card that you buy, like they did with
Yep.
Dragon Age's avail card, or Xbox Game Pass, which Avowed is on. I believe you can play it on Xbox Game Pass day one.
Yes.
So if you already have it, this is like how they're trying to promote it. So if you had no intention on buying it, and I think some people are doing playthroughs, but they're not paying for the game to like
Right.
essentially show us. Like I think Hypnotic is doing one, Vara Dark is doing one. She might be. I'm not really sure. But there was a couple of other people in this kind of ecosphere that are playing it. I will not.
What they are doing, because I was actually talking about this earlier this week, is so gaming companies used to actually used to have like a legitimate relationship with their audience, in the sense that they had to rely on word of mouth advertising, and actually like, so they told stories, and they try to tell really good stories so that they could hook in like a group of people that would later tell people, hey man, you should go pick up this game, it's actually worth paying for. But that's not the world we live in. It hasn't been for quite some time, unfortunately. What we deal with, and I've mentioned it even here before, is there's this concept of like, um, engagement bucks, or kind of exposure dollars, right? And it's all based on the idea of revenue funding models, which you've heard me go on about before, which plays to stakeholder politics, and so
stakeholder, they call it stakeholder capitalism.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like and so like the whole idea is that I just call it politics because that's usually it's agenda based more so than anything. But yes, it is, and I don't think of it so much as capitalism. It's corporatism, and they are very different things, and so like this stakeholder kind of assessment is that you keep things moving forward so that you can just keep churning and burning money, and it just cycles through, and so it's not so much focused about actually having legitimacy. And so the easiest way to do that is to do corporate synergy kind of deals, which is like, let's get Nvidia to be our customer, let's get Microsoft to be our customer, and then they can just put it in front of other people's eyes, and then that way we can go and show our engagement, and the exposure and all this kind of stuff that we've got from it. And so like they report things like minutes watched, minutes played, all this kind of stuff that they can spin, and it doesn't actually reflect this is how much profit we made, because they don't, last thing they want anybody to ever think about is how successful this actually was as a legitimate property, but more just, how do we keep this thing moving forward and have it appear like it's actually successful by spinning the numbers and doing all this, just insane bullshit that anybody that actually takes a moment to step back from it and just actually think about, like, what is actually pertinent to business, which is doing business, will just, see through it in an instant. And that's kind of like the way to uh, demystify people and break the illusion and the spell that most people are under when they think, oh, well, it's a AAA title, it's got to be really good, it's got like, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in it. And it's like, yeah, but when you do that, you kind of put yourself in this hard place to actually be successful. And this is why homogenized games that try to play for wide consumer bases do not work. And that's why you actually need to, legitimately try to find a customer base that you can just tell good stories to, that will appreciate the story that's being told. And that is anything but what this, ultimately pertains to be. So.
Yeah, and they use this stuff like these kind of, oh, like you can get on Xbox Game Pass day
Mhm.
one. It's supposed to sell Xbox Game Pass, but it's also supposed to sell the game in the hopes that people with FOMO are going to be like, oh, I got to play the new game because the new game is out, and it also pumps up their numbers artificially because
Right.
then Obsidian can say, look at how many people are playing our game, even though like who knows how many of those people are just on Game Pass. But even then, that's the thing, and we'll look at this later. Even then, the number of people playing this game, even with all that considered, is underwhelming, even compared to a game that's been out for over a year now, Baldur's Gate 3. And maybe we'll compare it to some other RPGs to see. Maybe we'll look at Divinity Original Sin, 1 and 2, and see maybe those games are still going strong. I don't know. So, but yeah, I think it's meant to obfuscate and manipulate people into thinking the game is better than it actually is by saying, look, everybody else is playing it. Look at these numbers. Why aren't you playing it?
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that people have gotten wise to that. And I think it might show in the numbers. We'll see. And that's the thing. Like sometimes the woke games come out and they fall on their face, like Concord. You know, sometimes the woke games come out and they do well for other reasons, like maybe Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And some people arguing whether or not it is or not, right? But I think that it's an important discussion to have. And I think that I'm not trying to make this about Kingdom Come, but the way that devs and journalists react to gamers is also a part of that. The way that they treat you, the way the journalists talk about you, the way the developers talk about you, that's
Mhm.
also important. You should, again, I'm not calling to get anything censored or removed or boycotted or whatever. I'm just not going to buy it. And that's just an easy thing. And it's really like they can't morally grandstand or say anything about you because it's your money at the end of the day. So, you know, um, I think that we'll see how the sales numbers go. I know that it's only been out for a little while. It's weird how fast these games come out. Am I just
Right.
like, seeing things like what?
Well,
I,
I mean, it's slow and then it's fast. Like
oh
they,
yeah,
they
yeah,
they 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 try to keep it hidden under wraps for the longest time, and then they do their hype cycle within just a few months because I think it speaks to the nature of kind of like this I guess TikTok culture that we have now. Like so, like
mm-hmm.
they hit it hard and fast right before it comes out and try to like just captivate you and not actually give you anything substantial to feed on, because then what would happen is exactly what's happening right now with this analytical discourse. So right now it's out on its early release, and the early release everybody is kind of facing embargoes on what they can actually report on, and if they report on anything that they're technically not allowed to, then they're going to get copyright struck. The channels get like basically assaulted, and so there's a lot of information about how there is a lot of soft locking in the game and
Yeah.
extreme bugs and everything like that. But I believe the official release will be this coming Tuesday. I believe will be the official release date, which means that all the people. This is going to be like, I'm
Oh,
assuming
this is like early
this.
access.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. So this is going to be like Star Wars Outlaws, where there's probably going to be a day zero patch, and so everybody that's trying to do anything with it currently is still going to have to start the game all over. Which now begs the question: you pay extra to get games that weren't even beta tested, so that you can be a beta tester for 5 days, so they can actually figure out like like the shit that they're going to be racing to get fixed. It's like this is just the worst way that you go about doing any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what the numbers look like. Let us know what you guys think. I think that it is kind of a sick practice to like essentially turn your customers into unpaid, beta testers,
Yeah.
and not only that, but like they're paying you
Yeah.
to
And
beta
they're
test
having to
your
pay
game.
a premium because it's like
Yeah.
$90 for the
You
enhanced
know,
access
that's
or
the thing
more.
too, is that this isn't there are in this situation there are no victims, only volunteers. Gamers should not allow their like consumer brain to like take over and cause them to spend money on something that is
That's right.
unfinished and untested and unproven. And so I don't have sympathy, but like, yeah, you guys shouldn't do that. I also, just as an aside, and this isn't like an argument I'm making against you, John, but because I know that a lot of people like easily fall into this trap of using the word capitalism to describe property rights. Capitalism is a word made up by communists so that they can criticize people who believe in owning their property. So we shouldn't use the word. I won't tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but I'm not going to use the word capitalism to describe property rights, because capitalism is commie language, just like, and so like it is, in fact, like stakeholder capitalism is fine because the people that are using that term are commies and that's their word, so they can have it. But I know what it really means, So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I choose to use corporatism because corporatism is much to me, like there's more of a distinction. Like, even though capitalism may be flawed,
it has a no. Capitalism is there's nothing wrong with owning property.
Right.
Capitalism is a word that they created.
Oh, I understand.
Made that up. Right. Okay.
But there's always going to be word games and things like that. And so, like, given that it may not necessarily be the word people, would want to use, by and large, it is in many ways like capitalism, for all of the things that it gets railed against it, whether rightly or wrongly. Capitalism, as it's kind of been accepted in the sense of, like, small businesses competing, keeping everyone honest on an equal playing field.
Sure.
That is not corporatism. Corporatism is the very centralized form of control. Everyone else has to, like, bow down to, like, a control state. That, to me, like, is more reflective of the actual Marxist kind of communistic control schemes that are put into play. And so that's why I just use that term a little bit more freely than capitalism, to at least kind of help demystify and get, because corporatism is not about actually competing in a equal setting. It is quite literally freezing everyone out and
corporations are fascist entities, like literally, because they take money from the government. They usually work in tandem with it in order to keep
bureaucracy and lobbying are their way of moving forward.
So we know that's what a corporation is. So I don't disagree with that, but okay, so Nova Fan says, don't forget consumerism. I don't want that in a free market society. Well, consumerism is an issue of the individual that is like using their resources. If you want to attack consumerism, good luck, because that is an issue that the people themselves have, right? Like, but that's why I'm saying, like, consumerism is when gamers buy games like 5 days before release for like twice the money so they can help the companies be essentially unpaid, like, beta testers, because they want the product. Like, that's the thing. Or the culture junkies that are just like, I want to watch the new whatever,
right,
because I'm addicted to it and I can't just walk away.
I assume, though, like, my take on that is that when looking at the word consumerism, it has more to kind of do with like compliance, and whereas being a customer has to do more with actually, like, being wooed and actually having somebody earn your business. So I think that's probably what they're referring to in that instance. I could be wrong, but I do see a difference between being a consumer and being a customer.
Yeah. I get that, but I think that, like, I guess you could look at it that way. I don't really fault that. I will probably try to use the word customer, because the word consumer does have a bit of a let's say it has a bit of the black spot on it, because it does refer essentially to people who don't think for themselves and they just spend money on junk. But like, if you want that, then you're gonna have to criticize women because they're the biggest consumers, period. Like, they buy junk, they buy what we call pre-trash, like the clothing, everything is disposable, made in sweatshops. Like, that's a consumer, is someone who just wants the new thing, doesn't really think about whether or not it's going to bring value into their life or whatever, and they're just filling a hole. They tend to become hoarders and make a mess of their lives. But that's not something that a business can do to you. That is something that you choose, right? So
Right.
we have to basically just be discerning and basically make a choice. Like, do I need that or not? And if you say you don't need that, you don't need it. That's why for me, it's not really a problem not to like, well, go watch the new movie or watch the new show or buy the new game or whatever. I'm
Right.
just like, you know what, I'm fine. And I don't think that I'm special or super intelligent. I think anybody can do it. They just have to have the ability to say, to deny themselves something, and they'll
Right.
be fine, right? And I
But-
think that's how consumers are made.
Yeah. I would say like the short form is good business relies on good customers, whereas consumerism, corporatism just relies on compliant consumerism. And so I
Yeah.
think that's they're similar but different in those regards. So one is more discerning, and the other one is more directed and just compliant to just fall in line and take direction.
Yeah, they're slaves to their passions. They're slaves to FOMO and to just like they want to be included. So like if you go to a job, because somebody said, and I'll read this one. This is Robert Johnson. He says they will suffer through a bad product to have something to talk about at and around the water cooler. Yeah.
Right.
So like if everyone's watching a show and it's trash, but you want to feel like you belong, you'll watch it just so that you can talk to them about it. And I guess that's kind of like not a terrible thing, because our culture builds community around it. But if our culture is sick, then our community is going to be sick too. So like we should be fostering and promoting like healthy cultural, let's say, distractions or entertainment, as opposed to unhealthy ones.
Well,
and yeah.
Well, it's kind of like like this week, Captain Globalism came out, right? And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are just like, I
Captain
just want,
Earth.
right?
Yeah.
I just want Disney to get back to making things that are good. And I've been going off on this for days now, on these various panels, shows, and things like that. I've been talking about like, you need to give up. Your nostalgia is a drug,
Let it go.
and it is poisoning you. There is no going back. This is like getting together with that trash bag narcissistic whore that cheated on you all the time. They will tell you things. They will promise you. They will do a whole bunch of gaslighting to get you back in that situation. And then once they comfortably, reliably have you there again, the fucking you over and fucking around on you goes all around the cycle all over again. There's no way to avoid it. They're constantly going to look for how they can undermine the situation and get it to their advantage. And the only time that they will ever placate you is once you're actually breaking the cycle. And so the only way to break the cycle is to break it entirely and stop and get away and look for people that actually are deserving of your business, not your consumerism, So yeah,
for sure. Okay, well, that sounds good.
Nice little tangent.
No, it's okay. I wanted to talk about that a little bit because
indeed,
it's a way that we can bring something a little bit different to the table, because I see these stories as opportunities to discuss other things. I don't care what
these are good
to
entry points, and that is what I like about doing this show with you, as opposed to some of the other panel shows that I'm on. Not to discredit them in any way, shape, form.
Whoa, guys, he's spilling the tea in here.
Right.
Shade.
But I it's just I do like the fact that with you and I,
we can dive a little deeper. It's okay.
Yeah, because it's just you and I just having conversations on the weekend, and so that's what I like about this show. In comparison to some of the other ones that I do, is since it's just you and I having a back and forth conversation, it's a little bit more free reign to actually get into these other aspects that are a little bit more, time dilated and kind of manicured. So
yeah, no, I get it. Well, anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one. Are you planning on picking up Avowed? Is it like something that did you have high hopes that Obsidian would get this right? Is Obsidian even the same company with the same people, or did the Me Too movement sweep through there and get everybody fired and replace them with women? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I wouldn't be surprised if that was true, but I didn't look into it. We're gonna move on to the next thing. So we're on a trend here of mask off moments. All right, let's talk about Len. This is an person that works at IGN, and So we're
Len
gonna
is
look
short
at
for Leonard. We're
Yes.
assuming, or because like original name
I'm sure
was
it is.
TJ now goes by well, something else entirely. But yes, this is
Right.
another
So there's a trans activist identified as Len. So I guess a trans activist, not just someone who advocates for transgenderism, but a trans person themselves that also advocate, a weirdo, okay, has
Lena,
admitted,
I believe is the name they go by now.
Lena, okay,
Lena.
has
Lena.
has
Yes.
admitted to deliberately sabotaging game review scores based on ideological bias. Len openly declared intentions to deduct points from games for using terms like the Gulf of America and express a readiness to start some fires on the way out if challenged, asserting a form of soft power. This has led to significant backlash, with critics arguing that such actions compromise the integrity of game journalism. Sorry. What? The integrity of game journalism? Okay. Little late for that. Suggesting that ideological pandering overshadows the quality of the games themselves. The incident has fueled discussions on platforms like X, where users express frustration over the perceived politicization of game reviews, calling for Len's dismissal and questioning the credibility of IGN's reviews. So, and this is the post. I'll take a whole point. This is Len. I'll take a whole point off the review score for any future map games that call it the Gulf of America. You think I'm joking? You think I want to do this forever? I could start some fires on the way out, try and call the bluff. Nobody has ever let this amount of soft power go to their head before, as far as I know. And yeah. So what are your thoughts on that, John?
Well, I'll just because I had this conversation earlier in the week with Will, and we had a good laugh about him saying map games, given what map as an acronym stands for. So this is this is one of those things where it's like, these are the people. I mean, Len here was TJ for the longest time in their lifetime, and now wants to go by something new, something different, something that it's more comfortable with. And so this just kind of speaks to the hypocrisy of, you want, like, oh, don't dead name me, but here I am, going to, like, insist upon this or that. And it's like, it's like we call India, but people from that area call it something else entirely. So, it's like, I'm sure other parts of the world will probably still refer to it as the Gulf of Mexico. But the point being is that here in America, there has been a change made, and it is what it is. And you would think that the people that are all like, respect my pronouns, respect my choices, blah, 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 would be able to actually at least kind of appreciate and understand. But this, again, like, is just one of those things that kind of shows, the hypocrisy of people's, I guess, emotional states, rather than being able to actually just kind of like understand, like, consensus and things like that. So, this mask off moment, though, has more to do with just the name of a body of water, and actually gets into their ideological mindsets on a few other things as well.
Well, they have TDS, so like anything Trump does, or Elon. Well, actually, Elon Musk is actually more hated than Trump right now, I think.
Right.
But anything these people do, they immediately take the opposite position on, and they see them as evil for doing it. But before I get into a couple things about this, okay? So people are acting surprised. Why? Like IGN or just game journals in general, this is what they believe. They are like super liberal, or woke, as it were, is probably a better term, critically conscious. And it doesn't, like them. I actually will say to Len, thank you for just, being real, because this is what they believe. This is the reality. They've always had this bias. Literally, Gamergate, which started in 2014, was supposed to be addressing this, even though there were a lot of people, a lot of liberals in Gamergate that refused to accept that they were part of the problem. And so instead, they just kind of like said, let's just focus on the ethics part. And like, obviously, that hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse. Like, think about it, okay? When Gamergate was happening, I want you guys in the audience to think about this. When Gamergate was happening in 2014, let's say you didn't know about Gamergate in 2014. That's fine. In 2014, were there games like Dustborn and Concord and Dragon Age of Veilguard and all these other ones, even Baldur's Gate 3 with all of its like super gay romance stuff? Were games like that in existence that were that high profile in the AAA space in 2014? And when did that, if it's not the case, and I don't know, I'm just putting it out there, when did that change? Do you see how far we have gone from 10 years ago to now, and how gamers were warning about this back then? And that the journalists were always antagonistic. We already know this because we know that USAID, which is a CIA PSYOP organization, essentially funded anti-Gamergate like sentiment all over the media, and they demonized it because the gamers were over the target. Like, they knew that we were talking about it. Okay, as much as people wanted to deny within Gamergate itself, there were people who were like, no, it's not that. Like, they were just afraid that their own identity as good people was under threat, and they didn't have the humility to say, you know what, maybe we're wrong, maybe we took this too far, maybe this doesn't make sense. And so what I'm seeing here is he is just showing us who he really is, and that's fine. I want to show you something else. This was just so you guys can see that IGN is clearly biased. Here's an article that IGN put out, how the 2024 US presidential election will impact video games. This is obviously biased as well. I looked into it. And I wanted to show that because I want you to know that these people have always been political, and it was never not the case. And it comes out in one way or another. So I'm just gonna find the source about this here in just a second. So they talk about what the advantage is to voting for Kamala Harris is for you as a gamer. And you know what they talk about? Do you guys remember on the campaign trail when I think it was Tim Walz, who was Kamala Harris's vice presidential nominee? He was playing Fortnite. You remember that? Do you remember
and they had a whole Fortnite city that, election town or whatever the fuck they called it. Yeah.
Yes. And IGN was pushing that. Yeah. So the article looks like on the surface it's like a balance thing, but it's really not. It was a Harris Walz campaign article that was supposed to push young people who, like IGN is like the
this
Steve
article
Buscemi
right here is
character.
a
He's like,
CIA psyop.
Yeah, this article is "Hello, fellow kids," the meme, and why don't you vote for Kamala Harris? And Tim Walz, he's cool. He's playing Fortnite. You kids like Fortnite, right? So they've always been this way, and I just wanted to put that out there. Make sure you guys. Yeah. I'm sure that my audience is really smart. My Discord is like a high IQ Discord. I'm just gonna say it. You have to have a high IQ to appreciate the Honey Badger Arcade Discord server. But one other thing I wanted to say too about this, about the
Fortnite thing was, especially egregious, considering that Fortnite is a game based primarily on gun-based combat. And the whole thing about that Fortnite update was that you were in a demilitarized city. And like there was no guns allowed, and it was just like, okay, so this is not like pretexting like an agenda to demilitarize people's ability to defend themselves. There's more honesty in fiction than there is truth in the news, and like the whole idea about that is, don't worry, kids, we got you covered. We're big brother government, the nanny state will take care of you, but just don't try to defend yourself. Give everything. And it's like, all right, so this completely cuts against the entire mindset. I don't even like Fortnite, but the fact, and this is actually part of the reason why I felt vindicated in my distaste for Fortnite, was that a game that completely just goes against its actual legitimate principles and values that it's based upon. The whole purpose of the game is undermined for political ideologies, and just kind of like taking
Oh yeah,
psyop money.
I remember when Black Lives Matter was going on, and they put like some like CNN thing on their big screen, and it was like Van Jones up there crying and shit. And I think they were throwing tomatoes, like all the gamers were just throwing tomatoes at it. So it doesn't, it's not quite landing. Like I don't think it's working out the way they hope, but it is.
No.
Oh, it's so like pathetically manipulative.
Yes.
Now, a word about the Gulf of Mexico, because I just want to clarify this, because some people are freaking out about it. First of all, there's a couple things about this. Number one, calling it the Gulf of America is actually more fitting not because it has any reference to the United States, because the United States is in America, but America is the name of the continents, right? The North and South Americas, right? So the Gulf of America is not referring to the United States specifically, even though Trump is the one that's changed it. It is actually a more appropriate term because it is a Gulf that represents the continent of America. The other thing is that the Gulf of Mexico wasn't always called the Gulf of Mexico. It's gone by different names. So, in case you didn't know, in the 18th century, it was called the Mexican Cove or Mexican Sound. And when the Spanish controlled much of the surrounding lands, it was referred to as the Spanish Sea. So it wasn't always called the Gulf of Mexico. Another thing we'll add to this is that depending on the international context, some people, like Mexico people, will still call it the Gulf of Mexico. It's not like they're going to go to jail for it. So it's not really like as true. I don't see why people are so triggered by it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think it's wrong. I think it's actually more correct to call it the Gulf of America. I just think we need to get used to it. And like I said, it wasn't even always called the Gulf of Mexico. In my lifetime, yeah. But not like all throughout history. It went by different names.
I think what this is one of those teachable moments when it's like, oh, well, you insist upon me using certain pronouns and this and that. And yet, in this instance, you find something to be just as offensive and morally abhorrent. But yet, this is that whole thing about kind of challenging your beliefs and actually putting up and dealing with things that, that you don't necessarily agree with. But it cuts to the core of the hypocrisy, and that's kind of the thing that I appreciate about it, because, going back to 2014 and what we used to have in game lobbies, the gamer words and all that kind of stuff that were spoken that were oh so evil, and these people that are just like, well, if we could just police the language, it would make for a better world. And ultimately, you have the freedom of speech, say whatever you want, and making this like a whole big thing kind of says more about through your reaction to it is more of an indicator on who you are than even the actual shifting of a name or a space. These things happen. My online presence has shifted. I used to be known as Neobraska everywhere, far and wide, right? And I still have it tangentially associated with my Steam account, my various game counts on like PlayStation and Xbox. But I no longer necessarily and I keep that because it's a legacy connected to that name. I don't want to have to have my game save stop working or this or that. These days, I go somewhere, problematic white guy, because it's more fitting for the time and place that I exist in now. And so and if somebody still wants to call me Neobraska or something like that, then they know me as that, fine, whatever. But these days I generally just call me John, just call me PWG, call me problematic. It's whatever. But one of the things that I find incredibly offensive, these people who will sit there and say, well, don't be using these gamer words, don't be using these racial epithets and all this kind of stuff, will sit here and tell me that I'm a cisgendered white male, whatever the fuck cis means. And I find that to be like, just as much of an offensive derogatory term as the things that they would complain about. And so
Yep.
therein lies like the whole crux of the situation is that, like there is not a morality that state that exists solely under the banner of one political paradigm. And so ultimately, like you trying to tell me that calling things straight or gay is somehow like worse than just saying like cis or non-binary or what the fuck ever. No, these are differences in perspectives, and where I think you're crazy about one thing, that person would in turn think I'm crazy about another, and so ultimately it's just kind of like your opinion, man, and we can all
Yeah.
kind of like actually move forward and
Yeah.
and just deal with the fact that there's going to be certain things in life that you either agree with or you don't. And if you're going to sit here and like try to piss and moan and make this the focus of what's going on, then obviously all these problems that you're conflating with being the worst thing ever really aren't that bad. If the biggest
Oh
thing that you have
no.
to piss and moan and bitch about right now under the Trump administration is the name of a fucking body of water,
Yeah.
then wow, this is actually pretty good times to be living in.
Yeah. No, I definitely. Well, you got to find new things to complain about. Yeah.
Right.
So for the record, I don't know if you guys knew this, but yes, it was called the Mexican Cove, the Spanish Sea, the Bay of Mexico, the Gulf of Florida, the Gulf of New Spain. Like in this, this is from like the Gulf of Florida was from the 16th century.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, according to European maps of the space. So it's been called different things. But what is really going on? So obviously this is like, TDS, but there's like something else. I think that it's important to note that a lot of these people, progressives, they are oikophobic. And oikophobia is like the hatred of your own culture
Right.
and of yourself, okay? And they have been conditioned to hate themselves. So anything that the reason it's not just because Trump said we're going to call it the Gulf of America, it's going to be great. It's not just because he said it. It's because the word America is in it. This is the same thing that with Anthony Mackie, who played Captain America in this new movie, which apparently is going to bomb, which I'm not surprised by. There's the same sentiment. Oh, America? Oh, we can't celebrate that. It's a bad country, right?
Call me Captain Globalism, because he would probably prefer that.
So I think that that's the thing, that's the important takeaway is that this is oikophobia, how it presents itself. The CIA spreads oikophobia to its own citizens, or it was. I mean, we're going to see if that changes, and abroad to other countries, right? They said why are they sending like I don't know LGBT classes and trans operas to like the South America and the Middle East and Asian countries and stuff? Well, they want to bring the same poison that we have over there, and they want to sow dissent, and they want to antagonize groups of people. And if you live in a multicultural society like we do, then you do it along the lines of race and other things. But if you're in a homogenous society, like you do it with the sexes, like South Korea is about as homogenous as it gets. I think that most of the people there are Korean, yet the men and the women can't stand each other because of this shit. They brought feminism over there, and that's basically going to kill the country. And it's a really effective weapon. So anyway, I'm digressing a bit, but this guy is obviously having an identity crisis, and he is extremely anxious, and he's low T, and he's angry, and he needs help. And but most of all, he's oikophobic, and that's what is coming. That's what is emerging. So be patriots is what I'm saying. If I was president, I would make it the law that you have to be patriotic. But we'll see. But I think that like the sentiment is changing. But we got to move on to the next story. Let's go to another mask off moment, which shouldn't surprise anyone.
Which is also based on what we were just talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why I picked it. So south of midnight, apparently a whistleblower has come forward and with allegations of extreme racism within the development process of South of Midnight at Compulsion Games. By the way, this game is one that David Jaffe, who is like the, apparently cuck in chief right now, has completely championed as a fantastic thing. And he doesn't get why nobody wants to play it, even though we could tell it was going to be mid or bullshit right off the bat. So
I call El Jefe, I call him the cuck of war because he is quite literally a lol cow. So COW, cuck of war.
Yeah.
He's a cow.
Cow. Okay. That's good. According to the whistleblower, the game's lead voice actress for the main character was replaced because she didn't sound black enough, highlighting a disturbing case of racial stereotyping. This incident was purportedly orchestrated by Sweet Baby Inc. You guys know who they are, but in case you don't know, they're a consultancy firm known for their involvement in promoting DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion narratives in video games, which has stirred controversy for altering game content to push these agendas. And also, it's not just that. Sweet Baby Inc. holds it's not their money, but they hold the capacity to get projects funded through like people outside of them. So when Kim Belair says, I don't know why people think that we have all this power. We're just a tiny little team of people. I'm nobody. I'm so small and female. But yes, you're not making money, but you are essentially the bridge between a AAA developer and BlackRock or some other investor, right?
And we mentioned it. Yeah, we mentioned it here last week.
We mentioned last week. I'm just bringing it up. Sweet Baby Inc.'s not just a consulting firm.
No, we mentioned it here last week, and it was cracked open even wider this week in the sense that Belair's was exposed as being one of the heads of a group called Wings. And when I talk about the video that I made last year that diagrammed the back-end funding model that it was orchestrated by the WF, the United Nations, through the Rockefeller Foundation think tank, that is specifically what it's referring to. It's based out of Sweden. It's called Wings. And it's basically a way for making it so that Ubisoft, which is ostensibly the publishing house for Globalism Incorporated, to go and offset a lot of their works through what seem to be and appear to be at the surface level independently owned businesses that are just indie game devs that are actually in a pyramid scheme of NGOs and shell corporations. And this is, the fruits of that labor is stuff like this.
Yes. So anyway, which has stirred controversy for altering game content to push these agendas. The whistleblower also suggests the studio's commitment to diversity was superficial as it engaged in tokenism and racial stereotyping behind closed doors. Well, all of that is tokenism. You can't commit to diversity without creating tokenism. Like that's you just have to let things happen organically. Okay. And so this is okay. I'm going to finish what I wrote down and then I'll get into it. So the backlash from these revelations has been significant, especially among gamers who feel that forced diversity quotas and race-swapping characters are not reflective of genuine inclusivity, but rather a form of pandering. The situation has been compounded by the actions of Compulsion Games' community manager, Katie Robinson, who has made controversial statements about gamers, further alienating the game's potential audience. This has led to a broader discussion on the authenticity of representation in video games and the impact of external consultants like Sweet Baby Inc. on the creative integrity and cultural sensitivity of game development. The controversy has fueled debates on platforms like X, where there's a call for accountability and a return to merit-based content creation in the gaming industry. So the thing that really annoys me about this is that people keep saying things like, well, I care about inclusion, but I don't want tokenism. The thing is that you have to not care about inclusion in order to make this work. You have to seriously not care, because what if somebody wants
is tokenism? It's just it's a nice word for it.
Tokenism, exactly. Look, I made a post that I didn't think was controversial at all, but it turned out to be a problem for a lot of people. I said there is no reason why a film or television show or video game couldn't have an all-white cast. I just said, like, there's no reason why you couldn't do it. Like, I'm not saying that you have to. I'm saying if someone made a show or a film or a movie or a video game and all the characters in it were white, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I wouldn't. In fact, I think that like only these people will notice because like they're programmed to do that, right? And people were arguing with me. I was like, yeah, but there are properties that exist that have like if you go to Bollywood, everyone's Indian in the movies. If you watch a movie from Ghana, everybody's fucking black or African. Nobody has a problem with that. And if you watch a Japanese film, everyone's Japanese in it. Like, you know what I mean? So what I mean is that like if you don't, you have to not think about these things. So what I think is happening is like because I saw a lot of people talking about this, like Smash JT and some others. When they say that, they're just really trying to like not be called racist or sexist, whatever. So they're saying, look, I'm all for this stuff. You don't have to say that. Like nobody gives a shit. You have to say, look, I don't think that should be a priority at all. Like it shouldn't be on the list. I don't give a shit. Nobody, no kid ever, and this is the thing that came up like a long time ago. No kid ever said, I wish I could be Spider-Man, but I'm not white. No kid has ever said that. That is only a narcissistic retard that could have said that, okay? Until they created Miles Morales. And even then, people are constantly making the defense for it. Well, I mean, like, it means anybody could be Spider-Man. They did the same thing with this new Captain America, where the whole film is just the film trying to justify itself. That's what the film is. It's like Sam Wilson anybody could be Cap. He's just a regular guy like you or me. He has no powers.
I'm Captain Critical Race Theory.
Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't matter because I'm not impacted by that. I've never worried about those things. I think they're silly. And yet people have to make these strange defenses. It's like they're preparing themselves for these allegations of bigotry by saying, look, I don't really care about dude, then don't care about them.
I'm Captain Media Literacy.
Don't try to like convince people that that being critical of DEI means that you're against whatever the fuck inclusivity even means.
Right.
You have to basically just like let it ride, because the reason why I say this is because if you try to justify, like you try to defend yourself and say, look, I'm not racist, here's proof, you're basically losing. That's a losing statement. That means that you're concerned about what they think. That's how you lose. So you're in their frame. That's what I'm saying. You're still in their framework. So I'm
Captain Male Feminist. Sorry.
So yeah. So as far as like, that's what I think about that. But as far as like the story itself goes, it doesn't shock me that they're like, because these people are obsessed with race as an identity. So of course they're going like, the Sweet Baby Inc. is going to be like, this person gets fired because they don't sound black enough, despite the fact the person was black. So it comes down to this thing, and this is like a thing that a lot of people who I know are black, they deal with, which is like this there's a struggle within the black population. It's not like a thing that comes from outside. It's within that black people have to prove their blackness to other black people all the time. And it comes down to like how they talk, how they walk, how they act, how they, and I think that it's ridiculous. But that's what the term code switching comes from. Right. Like you know about that, John? I don't know.
Yeah. You can talk a certain way in front of certain people, and then when you're in front of others. Yeah. So like, Atreus actually mentioned something about this earlier this week, how like, and it was in reference to like Pokemon trading cards and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, when I was a kid at home, I was all about my Pokemon, but as soon as I got to school, I was a thug. I was a this, I was a that. It's like you don't take that to school because that's not how you get laid. But it fully like falls under that whole kind of identity, political kind of mindset of like, you have to do certain things for certain reasons, and it's
yeah. And despite that, like despite the fact that it's certainly being sort of promoted or even enforced from within. The fact that these people have to do this, they blame the external. They blame society, like the white, the white supremacist society they live in. The same thing with women. They feel pressure from women to behave a certain way around women that's different from the way they behave around men. There's like an expectation, and they blame men for the expectation, while men generally don't care. Just like, nobody cares. Like, just be yourself is like, but yeah. So this doesn't surprise me at all. Like, of course, like, Kim Belair, this is also a thing that I noticed. Kim Belair is a mixed race person. I don't know if you've noticed, but mixed race people, like half black, half white, they are some of the worst woke people on earth, because they are conflicted and angry about their existence, because they have a white parent and a black parent.
Which is hilarious, because they're the product of people that actually are not racist.
Yeah, exactly. But that makes them more like insufferable, because they feel like they're fighting in a crusade and they can't. And this is something you see everywhere. Like, it's very common. I don't want to say that, it is a product of miscegenation or anything, because I think that those people coming together is proof that, that we don't live in a whatever the hell racism even means, but we don't even live in a racist society because they're together. But they tend to be like the biggest warriors. And what I think is the Kim Belair struggling with part of her identity, and it comes out in the projects that she makes, where even though all of the characters are self-inserts, they're blacker than she is. And so and then when they're like hiring people, they'll be like, well, you don't sound black enough. And it's like, well, what does that sound like? What are you talking about? Of course, the person who got fired, or the whistleblower, the whistleblower is not the person who got fired, but the whistleblower is also still progressive. That's why they're accusing them of being racist, because this is another thing that happens with the left, is they inevitably eat themselves. They eat each other, because it comes down to like, who is the most woke? Who is the most progressive? Who is the most tolerant?
Who's the biggest victim here?
Who's the biggest victim, right? And so they end up eventually attacking each other, because this person who's a whistleblower was probably like, well, I'm obviously a better liberal than these people are, so I'm going to tell on them. And so they came forward and did that. And I think it was in part to destroy their reputation. But this is what happens when you live in that headspace of, seeing everything in that way, in that liberal lens, where, you're just a better person than everybody else. Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that they do that. And it does require racial stereotyping to basically say, oh, the so-and-so is, doesn't sound black enough. But yeah, go ahead, John. What are you going to say?
Well, whenever I look at this image that we have on the screen, for our conversation, the accompanying image to this story, where it's showing off the main character, this is one of those things where, like, all the modernism that gets pushed into this specific title.
Yeah.
The character has, as you were stating, like, this is like the idealized form of what Kim Belland thinks, is representational of actual blackness, right? And like, so like, there's 7 piercings in the ear. There's a piercing in the nose. Wearing a tank top over a tank top, and this is supposed to take place in post Civil War South.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so like in the 1800s. Yeah,
right. So everything about this
I don't even think that haircut is from that time period.
No, and that's the thing. Is like, this thing is just completely up its own ass and around the corner about, like, like, all this stuff. Like, it is clearly doing everything it can to undermine actual quote unquote black history by conflating it with all this stupid bullshit about, like, what a proud black heritage should be based on, is something that doesn't even actually exist. And so, like, that's like you said, they will eat themselves. They will sit here and try to create such a vacuous kind of homogenized understanding of what they want history to be. It doesn't even actually allow for history to be honest And, and so like this goes back to like, what Morgan Freeman was saying about like, I don't need Black history. I just need history. Right.
Yeah.
And warts and all the stuff.
Well, he said Black history is American history, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, history is just history globally,
Yeah, sure.
And so that's the thing is like, if you're not actually going to take that kind of stuff into account, you end up with things like this, where the character, like I said, has like, 7 fucking piercings in each ear, a fucking ear bar that honestly I wouldn't expect to exist at the time, and like, and just imagine this character walking around, at this point in reality where it's supposed to my understanding, exist historically. This game does not even make sense in any way, shape, or form. And any person that wants to commit themselves to going along on this fantasy ride is undermining their own capacity to actually appreciate the supposed nuance and sophistication of the suffering that their actual forebears actually went through, because they just want to like have their time and place to have their happy joy feel good society of like, oh, but we're good enough, and it's just like, but this is insanity. This is complete puerile fucking bullshit, and only services to stoke the ego of the woke white woman known as Kim Bel-Air.
Yeah, absolutely.
She plays a Black woman on TV and on her various press junkets, but she is as woke white woman as it gets. White knighting for her own insecurities.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say also about this. Well, it's obviously an out of place. I didn't know about the time period thing.
I'm fairly certain. I could be wrong, but
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's post Civil War area, to maybe some point in the 1920s at the latest. But I'll double check just to make sure that I'm
double check. That's cool. But I want to know what the story is going to be. I can't wait to find out what it is, because I have a feeling I know. But yeah, that's the thing about South of Midnight. Another mask slip moment. Not at all surprised again. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember it now. So I'm just going to move on. Maybe it'll come back to me. So, all right. So I got a comment I want to reply to. So Gabriel Phelan Lucas gave me a comment and said, Brian, technically, aren't you mixed? Mixed heritage is common in much of South America. Yes. I think that well, I am, obviously. All Latinos are a mix of, usually it's like the natives of the area, the Spanish, and Africans, West Africans. And that's my mixture for sure. But the thing is, I don't know if it's because like growing up, I was just considered Puerto Rican. And because of that, I just took that as like part of my identity, and I wasn't conflicted. But I think also I wasn't like propagandized into hating like one side or the other, because my mother and father were both also Latino. So it wasn't like starkly different. And again, I that wasn't pushed on me. I think that the Black population, they got it pushed on them the hardest from various ops like the CIA. Remember, and this is actually really interesting. I don't know if we're going to learn more about this in the future, but as an aside, Charles Manson, digression. Charles Manson was a CIA like asset that was intentionally put on all kinds of psychedelic drugs made in labs, and so that he and his cult would basically commit acts of murder and rape and all kinds of nasty assaults in with the explicit purpose of starting a race war. That was what Charles Manson was supposed to do, and it's written about all over the place. He wanted to start a race war, or he was compelled to. Maybe they found somebody who was willing to do it anyway. He wanted to start a race war. He was an oikophobic, anti-white guy. He hated white people. He thought they were the devil, and he thought that blacks were a useful tool to get that done. So that was what he was trying to do. And I know, and then I'm just telling you, this is how far back this goes. So imagine the amount of propaganda that was floating around. Actually, a lot of the things that we're dealing with now was around in the 60s. So it's not like it's new. Yeah. So anyway, just something to think about.
Okay,
Um,
so it is not necessarily known. The
Time period.
assumption the assumption is that it's a fictionalized modern day American Deep South, based on Southern Gothic aesthetics, rather than a specific historical period. So they are just creating a fantastical realm that doesn't have any kind of bearing on anything other than just their feel good isms.
Mm.
So I guess good for you for not outrightly destroying history in this instance. So I will kind of step back from where I said on that. But however, still this
Well, we'll
is
see. Maybe when it
pure.
comes out,
It
we'll
could
get a
be.
better idea. Yeah.
It could be. Yeah. It could be that. But this is still a pure projected state of fictionalized reality, so that they can actually. So this has no bearing on actual state of whatever. So I guess
Yeah,
they would
yeah.
say, just let me have my escapism. And it's like, all right, well, your escapism's still fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll say one other thing too. People who essentially like color their hair and put a lot of piercings in their face and dress crazy, they're usually not very interesting people.
No,
So like they're
no.
making up, they're like basically peacocking to make up for not having a personality.
My
So
ex-wife had this many ear piercings and things like that, and yeah,
yeah,
she was not interesting at all, which was probably why she was so
and
low fidelity and
that's
just kind of did
yeah.
anything for a thrill.
Yeah, and generally it's attention-seeking behavior. Like I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying if you see someone and their face is like filled with metal and they got tattoos all over and they're wearing crazy clothes, there's a pretty good chance they're not interesting people. So anyway, so let's look at. I got a Rumble rant from NovaFan21. Thank you,
Nice,
NovaFan.
nice.
And he says, notice how none of them assume anything political when an all-black cast take over a formerly white franchise, but they assume it's white supremacy if the cast is all white. Yeah, well, people had an issue with that. And you know what they
Right.
often bring up, they throw in my face as a counter argument, supposedly, is that movie that literally nobody watched called Gods of Egypt or something like that. With that was like Alex Proyas with
Right.
Gerard Butler and I'm like, but nobody watched that movie. And also Egyptians aren't black. So
Right.
like you're not really correct. They're like to what the and you were so like
Yeah.
I'm
Egyptians
yeah,
are
like
Egyptian.
I guess yeah, they're Egyptian. Like, well, I'm not even sure that modern Egyptians, like I think that there was some evidence that ancient Egyptians were probably closer to Caucasian than anything else. Like,
Mhm.
well, like somewhere like definitely Middle Eastern, obviously, but
Right. Like the
yeah,
term
anyway, that's what they
wandering
throw up.
gypsy
The movie nobody saw is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah,
knows. Who watched Gods of Egypt? Anybody? Let me know in the comments. So,
right. Yeah. If you won Gods of Egypt, I guess you win in this one instance, but you also lost because you watched it. But yeah, like, but yeah, like the term gypsy in and of itself, which I know is supposed to be, hey, don't say the word gypsy. I mean, it's why? Because it's a racial epithet, and it's like, oh yeah, because it's a bastardization of the word Egyptian. So again, Egyptians not black, they're Egyptian.
Yep. All right, next story. The next mask off moment. This is all people like showing their ass or like saying something they might regret. Okay, so if you're looking at this image, you're probably like, who the hell is that? And I'm with you. So
Right.
there was in the comics for Marvel Comics, there was a character named Galacta who is the daughter of Galactus. And don't know when that character came out. I guess in 2009 was when the character was made. So that's like a while ago. That's like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. So Galacta, despite the popularity of this character, Galacta, especially because she is the sort of like the, what do you call it? The announcer for the game Marvel Rivals.
Yep.
Marvel Comics executive editor Tom Brevoort has expressed disinterest in producing more content featuring Galacta. Introduced in 2009 as the daughter of Galactus, Galacta has seen a surge in popularity because of the game. I never heard of her before, where she serves as the game's announcer. However, Brevoort, who is also the editor for the Fantastic Four comics, stated on his Substack that he dislikes how Galacta's existence impacts the character of Galactus. He believes that further development of Galacta would detract from the established narrative of Galactus. Hence, he is against expanding her stories within the main Marvel universe. So, wait a minute. Are you saying that if you take established canon and change it in such a significant way that it impacts like what's been built over decades by, you know, actually talented and intelligent people like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, that it's actually bad to do that? So
No.
he doesn't know what he said. Now, Tom Brevoort has supported diversity and representation in comics. He was involved with Ms. Marvel, which is Kamala Khan, and you know, other projects that showed like he was willing to like undo canon and replace characters with other characters. He was totally behind Captain Marvel. He was behind all these other changes, right? Like Sam Wilson's Captain America. He was all about that. But Galacta, he was like, oh, well, this, I don't like how this affects the canon of the story. And it's like, oh, so you don't like it when they change that. Now, I don't think this is a great character. Personally, I think it's lazy. I didn't even know it was a real character. I thought it was just like, oh, it's a girl cosplaying as Galactus. That's what it is.
Right.
But no, it's like literally in the canon that he had a daughter. And I was like, that's stupid. It makes no sense. But this is what I'm saying. Like these people.
Well, it's not technically Galactus's daughter. It's this adopted. It's an astral parasite that is taken on the shape of a woman that Galactus finds kinship with because it also is a devourer of cosmic
Worlds.
energies and well, not worlds,
not worlds.
The bacteria, yeah, because that's the thing. It's like Galactus, but good because vagina.
Oh
so,
boy!
Right. So it is actually protector of worlds, you see. The protector of worlds that keeps humanity safe from the Skrulls, from the this, from the that, whatever. You know, it's just going to go and process all that evil and whatnot. And it needs to because it is, for whatever reason, a parasite that has its own parasite. So it's just, you know, immaculate conception pregnancy as well for, you know, whatever.
It's Galactus.
Yes, indeed. And so yeah, it's some woke fuckery and a half.
Well, and again, Tom Brevoort has an issue with it, and he doesn't like how it changes canon, and that's what I wanted to. I was like, well, that's fucking interesting because we were talking about with female Thor, which he supported as well. When they made Thor a woman, we were like, no, that's bullshit. I even had a guest on. He's actually like a guy from the North. He's a Northman named Bjorn Bull Hansen, and he's an author, and he cares a lot about Norse mythology and like, you know, and all of that. And he is like, no, Thor should not be a woman. This is bullshit. So I mean, not that it matters because I know the comic book Thor is not trying to be like the myth exactly, but there is an essence there that was disrupted when they made Thor into a woman, and this is what they always do. So when they make Galactus into a woman, suddenly this guy's like, oh, that's not cool. Now, obviously, it's not like changing the character, but the point is that a guy who didn't take an issue with it when it was happening in the way that he liked is now taking an issue with it. Right. And I think that this comes to well, first of all, I just like pointing out hypocrisy. It's fun. But the other thing is, this is why
I have a hard time looking at this image just because the perspective's all off and it's shit art. You know? It's
not good art. It's not good art. She's got a massive, like, what's with this deltoid? Like, she's got a big ass shoulder. Right. She looks pretty mannish, and I don't know about the hair, but yeah. So, but I don't know, man. This is just a lazy design. It's not very well drawn. You're right about that. It looks like it was, and this is from a comic book panel. This, like, the standards have fallen so much. Okay. In that industry. I remember the days of like John Byrne, who was like one of my favorite artists, Arthur Adams, the guy who did why am I forgetting? He did X-Men for a while, and then he went on to do he worked for Image Comics too. Dude, it's not right on the tip of my tongue. It's like Mark Silvestri. That's it. Mark Silvestri. Ooh. The guy who did Thor for a long period, Walt Simonson, those are like the goats, okay? The goats of art, but they're all men, so fuck those guys. But anyway, so So anyway, what I guess what this comes down to is like it's important that you have a standard, that when you're telling stories that there is a canon and that people stick to it and respect it, even if you are working in an industry where the writers change and the artists change and like there's a lot of changes in the staff. They have to maintain the vision. And one of the things that, for as long as Stan Lee was doing it, he was very good about keeping things consistent, and while still allowing the writers to have a little bit of wiggle room. Like, for example, just geek out a little bit about comics. The Silver Surfer was they had like two distinct comic book lines of the Silver Surfer, one done by Mobius and one done by Jack Kirby when it was first created.
Right.
And they felt different, but the Jack Kirby ones were just better. They were more like the Mobius ones got a little bit too kind of high art and highbrow, and because Mobius was like this guy, I think he did like French comics or something.
Mhm.
And but the books were still successful, and they didn't break the spirit of what the character is. They didn't change it in a fundamental way. So I think if you're telling stories and you're working on established existing canon, you should try to work within the canon. And it doesn't mean that you don't have freedom of expression, but you still, it's actually more like rules. And when you're operating within some rules or some boundaries, there's actually more opportunity to tell better stories, because it's sort of like forcing you to
limitation forces legitimate creativity.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things
Limitation
that have verisimilitude
creates opportunities for innovation,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So that's what I would say about Galacta. I just wanted to talk about that briefly. And we got one more, I think, one more story. And this is interesting. This is more government, USAID, FCC stuff. So let's take a look at this here. I'm going to put it up on the screen. So I think this is kind of amazing. And I'm just going to give you guys the short version of this. So the FCC is opening an investigation into Comcast and its subsidiary, NBC Universal, focusing on their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr has expressed concerns that these companies may be promoting, quote, invidious forms, or maybe invidious forms of DEI, end quote, in ways that do not comply with FCC regulations and civil rights laws. This investigation is part of a broader effort by the FCC under Carr's leadership to examine DEI practices across industries it regulates, prompted by recent executive orders from President Trump targeting DEI programs. So this is amazing. I want to see what happens. I'm excited. John, what do you think?
Yeah. This is definitely early goings. So like there's we'll come back to this in a later episode when there's more to be said about it. But just the fact that this is happening in and of itself is a step in the right direction, I would say, because there needs to be levels of accountability. You play the game, you get the outcomes. This is the find out phase of the fucking around. And, these companies dabbled in fucking around with, identity politics and things like that for well over the past decade in and of itself. And so it's rife. Like the time is right to actually, go in and find the accountable and hold them to account. And so and this kind of thing that we're dealing with too, as we've learned through this psyop kind of conspiracy that was a legitimate conspiracy in the sense that it was a group of people that planned on doing this thing, utilizing taxpayer money to kind of like commit a CIA based psyop on reality. We need to make sure that if we want to put an end to the bureaucracy's undermining of our individual sovereignty and things like that, then these are the things that actually need to be happening over the course of not just the next 4 years, but onward throughout our continued history, if we are to remain a free nation state. that actually has people able to discern for themselves and get along in a more peaceful kind of prosperous nation. Because the problems that we're experiencing today are based on the identity politic games that have been played out over decades and have only intensified in these last 10 to 15 years specifically because of the control structure that was put in place to obscure just how much fuckery has been going on. Yep. Oh, my mic is being a pain in the ass.
Oh no, that was my fault. I muted.
Okay. Okay.
I'm excited to see what comes of this, and but it is early goings, like you said.
Yeah.
We'll find out, but I'm excited, and I don't suspect it's going to end with Comcast and NBC Universal. I think that depending on like what fruit comes from this, we may see other studios and other. I'm hoping for like animation studios to get investigated, because I think that there's a lot there that I've talked about in the past. I don't know how you would be able to correct this. Like, how would you determine whether or not DEI played a role in some staffing or whatever? But we'll see. We'll see. I'm hopeful, and I think that at least culturally, there is a shift in that. So we'll follow up when we learn more about this. But it looks like Hollywood's getting audited, just like the IRS is getting audited, and I'm here for it.
Indeed.
So, all right, let's look at some cake then. We're 15 minutes of shutting this bitch down, and I want to look at some numbers. So first, we're gonna look at Dragon Age: The Veilguard and try to keep this in mind here as we. Okay, so Dragon Age: The Veilguard, 3,682 people in game. And as you can see, it is steadily declining. So and this game has been out since October of last year. Let us compare that to Avowed, which just came. Well, it's not even out yet, right? It's like coming out on the 18th, which is like in a couple of days. So maybe these numbers are a little unfair, but it's at 10,000 right now, which is not. I don't know how many. Like, if you get an Xbox Game Pass, you can play it, right? So this is probably not great. It does have slightly better reviews, but we'll see how that goes. Then I have Baldur's Gate 3, 84,000. So this is Avowed at 10,000. And Baldur's Gate 3, which has been out since August of 2023, is at 84,000 people. So there are still tons of people playing it. And I understand that I think they have like some new updates coming out for this game that let you, because one thing I always wanted, but I had to use mods to do it, and it was kind of a pain in the ass, is to build my own custom party completely from the ground up, so I don't have to deal with like all the NPCs trying to have sex with me, and because that's what they do, and I just don't want that. So I want to build a completely custom party, go like just do the adventures. You can call it Murder Hobo if you want to, but that is like what I would prefer to do, because I think mechanically it does a lot right. The only thing I don't care for are like the way that the NPCs are handled in it, in my opinion. I mean, maybe your opinion differs, but like, when I played Dragon Age Origins, I think that was one of the first games that I played that had like romance options in it. And I just didn't care that much. And I didn't really see, like, I think there was a game that I had like a friendship system. It was like one of the Onimushas where you can give gifts to like, characters, and they would like you more or not like you. But that didn't like result in you banging. It was just like you get bonuses from them, or maybe they give you an item or something. I was fine with that. Like, it's just purely mechanical. Don't give me this. I don't see what I'm supposed to get out of it. But yeah.
No, relationships in games were kind of one of the harbingers of all the fuckery that we deal with now.
I agree.
Like, I remember, like, because like, say, like, back Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the hot coffee mod, and all it was about was just getting your dick wet, just doing some fucking, and like the girlfriend characters become more and more progressively annoying and fucking just kind of like they're unbearable, and they get worse with each passing title that they try to introduce that dynamic and have it be a thing. And so it's just like, dude, just
There's
leave
really
it out.
no. I don't
There's
think
no
there's
point.
any. No, I don't see any really satisfying way to put that in the game. Like, I'll do it if I guess because you usually have to, like, at some point you confront this and you're just like, okay, let me see what this is like about.
Right.
So,
Or
like,
or there's some kind of weird kind of fringe benefit from doing it, like you
Yeah,
unlock like a special
or you
ability or something like that.
right, like you're hoping to get one, because I don't know, I can't speak to every game that has romance options in it, but I haven't seen anything like really beneficial from it. Like when I played was a game that, well, yeah, when I played Dragon Age, I got Leliana, which
Mhm.
was like more work than Morrigan. I could just bang Morrigan whenever, and it didn't do anything. Like, at
Right.
least in like, there was this old 8-bit game, Gogol 13. It was based on a manga called Gogol 13, and you basically just shot at bad guys. He was like an assassin.
Yep.
And you would meet women and then sleep with them, and you get your health back. And this was like on the 8-bit NES.
Yeah,
At least
I remember
there
it
was
was
a
it was one of
benefit.
the first games that actually before there was Wolfenstein, there was Gogol 13 in terms of like a game that emulated three-dimensional space.
Yes, because you
It
could
was
shoot
it was a
guys.
great,
It was like
amazing
a
game.
target. No, I liked it. Yeah, and you would, like, there'd all be all these women, and they look kind of the same, but they had like different haircuts and it was different colors. But you would just have sex with them, and then you come out and you'd have full health. And
Yeah.
then that at least
Much
it
in the
did
way
that,
that you
right?
used to with God of War,
Yeah,
God of
that's
War
right.
used to
God of
get
War did do
Yep,
that. That's
Kratos
right.
used to get his fuck on, and it wasn't about having a
You get a
relationship
bunch
with these
of
women. It was just
red orbs so that you could level your shit up. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Of course,
And
now like even Jaffe would probably say, "Oh, that was so inappropriate. It was wrong." And it's
right,
like, come on, man. At least
right.
it had a mechanic, and you didn't see anything either. I mean, there were like titties in the game,
No,
but you didn't like see the
it
sex.
specifically went off screen, and just like you
Yeah,
might have heard like some
the
kind of
moaning and like the
moaning or
creaking,
something.
the
Yeah, like
bed.
something
Yeah,
suggestive at best. But yeah, like I remember being in art school where you could actually just kind of like see this insanity gestating, because like like the head of our department, she would talk about like what we need, is the human condition, and it needs to like celebrate things like relationships, and like and it was
yeah.
just, oh god, yeah. And just seeing how everything that has transpired since that time when I was in game design school from 2005 and on. I really do think the more that I think about my time back there at Savannah College of Art and Design, the more I believe that it was part of this identity politics psyop that is
Yeah,
being exposed uh, clearly,
yeah.
because of what she's gone on to do since then, and a lot of the titles that she was involved with. And she wrote this book, Sex in Games, and all this kind of stuff. And so, like, it's all the things that
Oh,
we
for
talk about.
sure. Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, definitely.
so,
Well, I think
so
that's why. Again, I asked you guys in 2014, did you see this much? Like, kind of drama, soap opera, woke bullshit in video games? I would argue no. I mean, I think that these
no,
people that are in the industry now were the bloggers and journalists of yesterday, and they
right,
wanted. I remember when I was in college, for like for illustration, there were some people in some of my classes that were going into game design, and they were big supporters of Anita Sarkeesian. And I was
yeah,
like, oh my god, guys, this is going to be like disastrous. You're going to go into the world, you're going to get a job, you're going to use your victimhood to get it, and then you're going to ruin it. So yeah. Anyway, so Robert Johnson says, not Leisure Suit Larry fans I see, uncultured men of culture. No, I know about Leisure Suit Larry.
it's
I didn't
funny
have
you
a
bring that
PC.
up. It's
Oh
funny you
yeah.
bring that up, because when they did the Leisure Suit Larry remasters, that woman that was the head of my game design department, she was the one that they tapped to fucking fix the story of Leisure Suit Larry, and
Oh no.
completely fucking ruined it. She's also behind when they had Playboy Mansion. She was the person who was behind that, and that was a terrible game. So no, I had no problem with Leisure Suit Larry when it was written by a man and actually had a male perspective on it. But then they went and kind of like did all this stupid fuckery to it. So no, like
Yeah. There you go.
Leisure Suit Larry was a product of its time, and it was meant to be what it was meant to be. Leisure Suit Larry was not about relationships. It was, again,
No,
it was.
it wasn't.
It was.
It wasn't.
You know,
I don't think there's romance options in that game either.
No,
I
no.
don't think there's any romance in it. All right. Anyway, back to the cake. So next we got a Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition. I couldn't really find the original one, but it's still like 1,700 people playing it, despite the fact the game is 10 years old. That I think says something. And then I looked up Divinity Original Sin 2. 8,000 people are playing that game. So that is pretty good. It's like up there with Avowed, despite the fact, and better than Dragon Age. So more people are playing Divinity Original Sin 2 than there are people playing Dragon Age The Veilguard.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. And this game is from 2017. So that's what, like 8 years old? That's
Let's see.
7.5 years, 7.5 years ago. That is crazy, man. That actually makes me want to play this game. I have it. I just haven't played it yet. I haven't started it. So, anything else I should look up? I don't know if there's any other games I should be looking up.
Let's see.
I could do Helldivers and Warhammer and stuff like that. I think it's probably pretty steady. For both of them. So Space Marine 2. Let's see. Yeah, 12,000. Helldivers 2 is 81,000. Whoa, okay. It's picked up. Doing a little bit more. That's not bad. I was expecting to be in the 30. It was like 30,000, I think. Every time we checked on it. I know that there's been some events going on. There's always something going on. I think that Helldivers 2 is probably like, as far as live service games go, it's probably like the best one, or at least that I know of, in terms of like people keeping up on it, because it has a game master. There's like actually a GM that works at Arrowhead, and he, basically says he's the one who decides what happens, and then all the players react to it. So it's like we're playing a tabletop game on a mass scale. So,
right.
Zerang says, aren't Divinity 2, and Baldur's Gate 3 all Larian? Yes, they are, for $2. Thank you so much. Yes, they are. That's why I thought I would compare it to Baldur's Gate 3 to sort of get an idea. I also have the original Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2. I haven't played those yet either, but I heard good things. So let's see, what else? Marvel Rivals. Let's see what Marvel Rivals is at. Marvel Rivals. So 230. Okay. China is killing it. Did you know that speaking of China, we have a time for like one trailer, I guess. So I'm gonna look up a game trailer, because we're almost done here. And I'm sorry about the issues early. I don't know what happened with my internet, but there is a game coming out from China that is like a Arthurian, like it's like a medieval game. What the hell is it called? Yeah, I don't know. It's it might be my history here. Hold on a second. But for some reason, China is doing, like, they're doing something that no one, like the Western devs are just not fucking doing. And it's like, why aren't you doing this? I'm trying to find it. It's in my history
because
somewhere.
we're multiculturalizing our history.
Yeah.
We have to go and like put it directly in like somebody's TISM zone of projection to kind of like take away all the bad.
Oh, it's called Tides of Annihilation.
Oh yes, I hear good things about this game all week long, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So yeah,
we're gonna look at Tides of Annihilation, 2-minute trailer. Again, I don't know if this is gonna show gameplay. Let me see. It might. No, it's the announce. Well, it's got some gameplay. Yeah, it's got some gameplay. Okay, so we're gonna look at this one. Hold on a second while I get this set up, and I'll close this. So, thank you, Gabriel. Yeah, that was one I was thinking of. All right, let's take a look at this. Tides of Annihilation. I think there was like some story around this as well, but Attractive female character.
Right.
Fantasy sword. Hold on a second. You guys might not be able to hear.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm
the
not quite
sound.
hearing the audio myself.
You're not hearing the audio from this? Why aren't you hearing the audio from this? Let me see.
Not sure.
I may have to. Let me just change something. So the browser. Let me change.
Worst case scenario, if people like what they see, they can go check it out themselves to hear how awesome it is as well.
Yeah, let me just check it here, as I don't want. Yeah, definitely check it out. But let me see. Browser audio. Here we go. So I'm just going to change this to this. Did you say something, John?
No.
Okay.
My phone
All right.
might made a noise.
No. I'm checking to see if the sound is going to be correct here. So
Gotcha.
cable input. Then okay. Let me go back a little bit. I'm just gonna mess around with where the sound is coming from, and then move it to the right place, so that okay, Braves cable D. So we're just gonna change this to let's go back to the screen here. Okay. What? It'll just take me a moment, okay? Relax.
Oh, I'm just laughing about a post that Ryan Roger just put out from a conversation we had earlier this week about Gamergate 1 and Alyssa Mercante alluding to her female baldness.
Okay, let's play this.
Devoured everything from
really
the
hear it
past.
now.
Only I was left.
As long as the people out there can hear it, they'll be fine.
That was a fatal mistake.
It's the aura of the Grail pieces. I can sense it. As long as it is reforged.
My wish can be fulfilled.
But wishes come at a price.
To pursue one's wishes is to court one's doom.
Alright, there's the
Grail. Blood. This is a feast only for the king.
The people in the chat.
Mandarin? This is your final warning.
My quarrel lies not with you, but I will take back everything that belongs to me. Even if the price is my soul. The table is dead. It exists no more.
Hot female character.
So yeah, it looks like it's an action game where you summon the spirits of the Knights of the Round Table. So like that's why there were like knights that were like attacking in place
but we're not supposed to like this because it's got a woman protagonist. Shh, such bullshit.
Yeah.
No, this looks really interesting and cool.
Yeah, definitely looks really cool. So I that's all I had time to show off right now because the stories went a little bit long, but it's okay. I think that again, this is all I will say is that China's doing this. We should be doing this. That's it. Like if we're gonna compete, our developers should be doing this, and they're not doing this. We're going to lose if they don't step up. And meanwhile, they're giving us crap like Avowed, and like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. That I'm sorry, but that's a choice. Like they have
the
to
West
do,
is
they have to
pushing
do
for
better.
consumerism. and
Yeah.
China's pushing actual like good business.
Well, it seems that way. So like, I don't know, man. I think that if you're going to compete on the market of games, you got to get like the right people in there. You got to stop fucking around because like our competitors are not fucking around. So,
Right.
Zeranx gives us $2 and says tides of proxy violence. Yes, she's got stands. That's what it is. She's got stands.
That's
All
right.
right, we're gonna wrap the show up there now. Thanks, guys. My wife's
Indeed.
cooking some ribs, and I'm like wondering if they're ready. But we're gonna end the show there. Thank you, John, for
Yep.
coming on again and hanging
Indeed.
out with me.
I
And thank you
will,
guys for watching. Yeah.
Yeah, I will be, of course, Scooby Pup's podcast will be later today at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Her guest is, oh yeah, it's me. It's this guy. So I will, not be in the producer chair as I generally am week in and week
Cool.
out. I will be, I suppose, similar to what I do when I'm on Toasty streams. I will be, working the buttons while actually talking and doing the thing in real time. So that should be interesting. That is provided that we actually have a show today. She is scheduled to work like all the way right up till the moment of showtime. So provided that she doesn't get stuck at work, the show should go forward as planned. So if you want to see me talk about like the state of reality in media and things like that, similar to like what we do here, there will be another go at that this afternoon on her channel. Otherwise, it'll just be a low key kind of Saturday. If that doesn't happen, I'll probably end up streaming with Toasty, who streams the same time. So I'd say, check out the thing that I'm on. If you're interested in hearing from me, go check out Toasty's stream. If you just want to like, see people like, have fun and be gooners and whatnot, and just kind of like have like a raucous good time. We had so much fun there yesterday. It was one of the most fun streams I've been on in quite some time. And then other than that, Will of the Fans tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. We are not doing Old White Road tomorrow. We're taking a little bit more of a relaxed approach. We kind of decided that maybe, just maybe, all these topics of the day, topic overload kind of is happening. I have been like, talking about a lot of the same topics day in and day out for weeks now. So I'm kind of happy to have a little bit more breathing room, and I'm also working on getting my Steam Deck up to date. I just need to figure out the virtual camera inside of OBS in Linux, and once I get that sorted out, I should actually be able to go live again with the new updated problematic white guy Vroid avatar. And
All
so
right.
fingers crossed that will be happening soon. But other than that, just gonna like enjoy the next few days of some downtime and actually try to take care of these personal issues with my tech and everything like that. And so with that said, safe travels ahead, wonderful weekend going forward. Be awesome as always. And thanks again for great conversation today. I think we got into the meat on this stuff in a way that we aren't able to do, probably, or at least I'm not able to do on some of my other streams.
There you go.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you for your input and cooperation on the stream, and thank you guys for watching. Despite I seem to be cursed to have tech problems. I don't know why.
If it's not you, it's me.
I know, and I guess I'm just gonna need an exorcist to come in and help us out. But anyway, thanks guys for coming on the stream. Again, be on the lookout for my first person February spotlights as well as streams coming up. I think I'm gonna be doing. Let me take a look. I'm just gonna like tell you guys what's coming up this week. Let's see. So first person February this week, I'm going to be playing Resistance Fall of Man on the PS3 and Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which is an old Wolfenstein game from like a while back. I think it's like or something like that. And there'll be some spotlights as well. Some people have like bought me some gifts, and I think I'll spotlight the first person shooters among those as well. So anyway, Thanks, guys, for coming on the show. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what we discussed in the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of The Week in Culture, and we'll talk to you guys in the next video. Long live Vivian.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.